Hello everyone, welcome to podcast 15 of Let's Revise MBBS, and today we are going to discuss about molar pregnancy. Okay, so molar in Greek means false conception. Okay, we even call it as hydatiform mole. So this name hydatiform comes from its similar appearance to hydatid cyst. Okay, therefore it has quite many names: molar pregnancy, hydatiform mole, or gestational trophoblastic disease, etc. Okay, so now molar pregnancy is divided into two types: gestational trophoblastic disease or gestational trophoblastic neoplasia. So now in disease we have benign conditions which are partial and complete mole, and in neoplasia we have invasive mole, we have choriocarcinoma, we have placental site trophoblastic tumor, and we have epithelial trophoblastic tumor. Okay, so what is the risk factor for molar pregnancy? One of the important risk factors is maternal age. Okay, we'll see why maternal age is important risk factor. And then other risk factors are vitamin A deficiency, smoking, and previous history of molar pregnancy. Okay, so let's start with complete mole. So what is a complete mole? As the name suggests, it completely is a mole. It does not have any fetus. It's just a false conception. So here what happens is egg which fertilizes with sperm, the egg is empty. The egg does not have any genetic material. Okay, so egg is empty. The sperm fertilizes with the egg. Most of the time only one sperm fertilizes with the egg, and then it doubles. The genetic material doubles. So in 90% of cases, the genetic composition of complete mole is 46XX. Okay, it can never be 46YY. If the sperm of 23Y fuses with empty egg, it will duplicate and form 46YY. But this 46YY is not compatible with life, so it will get aborted. So we cannot have a complete mole having genetic makeup as 46YY. So most common genetic composition of complete mole is 46XX, but sometimes two sperms fertilizing an empty ovum is possible. So that's rare, that's around 10%. So in that cases we can have 46XY. So this was about how the complete mole is formed. Now what happens is fetus is not formed because there are no maternal chromosomes in it. So the trophoblast is formed, but the inner cell mass is not formed. So this trophoblast grows excessively, but there is no fetus inside. So we had seen in the previous podcasts that trophoblast secretes HCG, mainly syncytial trophoblast. So since the trophoblast is proliferating at a very fast rate, so the HCG will increase at a very faster rate. So we will get HCG of more than 1 lakh international units per liter. So what can be effects of this raised HCG? So first is patient can have PIH. Then the patient can have hyperemesis gravidarum because we saw that HCG stimulates the area postrema. Then the patient can have thyrotoxicosis. Why? Because the alpha subunit of HCG is similar to TSH. Okay, and the patient can also have theca lutein cyst. Why? Because the alpha subunit of beta HCG is also similar to LH and FSH. So what will be the other symptoms? The patient will present with bleeding per vaginum, and she'll give a history of expulsion of grape-like vesicles from the vagina, and the size of the uterus will be more than the period of gestation. Okay, these are some features of complete mole. So complete mole has a higher chance of getting converted into gestational trophoblastic neoplasia. Okay, and on USG we can see characteristic snowstorm appearance. Why you can see this? Because there are some cystic spaces inside the trophoblasts, and there are some cystic spaces, and besides that there is trophoblast. So this appearance looks like a snowstorm appearance. Okay, and one more genetic testing is P57. So P57 gene is present only in the maternal genetic material. So if we do P57 testing in complete mole, it will be positive or negative? negative, right? So this was about complete mole. Now let's compare this with partial mole. So what happens in partial mole is that the egg is 2 sperms fertilizes 1 egg, but the egg has its genetic material. Okay, so the fetus which is formed is either triploid or also sometimes can be tetraploid. Okay, so maternal genes are there as well as paternal genes are there. So fetus will be present, but it will be malformed fetus, right? So fetal parts are there along with some trophoblast is also there. So consider this partial mole as complete mole just with a lesser degree of severity. So you can guess all the symptoms. So here also the HCG levels will rise, but they will be less than 1 lakh international units per liter. So all the symptoms which we were getting in complete mole due to HCG will also be present in partial mole, but with a lesser degree of severity. Then partial mole has a lesser chance of getting converted into GTN, neoplasia. Okay, and if we do P57 testing, it will be positive here because the egg is having genetic material, right? So how do we manage this molar pregnancy? Both, either complete or partial. The management of choice or the treatment of choice is suction and evacuation. Okay, we suck and we evacuate all the moles and all the trophoblasts which is there, and then follow up with HCG. We keep on measuring the HCG levels. So how do we monitor this HCG? Initially, we monitor it weekly till the time it becomes normal, it becomes equal to normal. We monitor it weekly. Then once it becomes normal, we monitor it monthly for 6 months. Okay, and during this 6 months, the pregnancy should be contraindicated so that we can get confused whether the HCG rise is due to GTN or due to next pregnancy. So for that, we will give that female OC pills for 6 months and keep on monitoring HCG level for 6 months. Okay, in case of complete mole, the HCG levels come to normal by 7 weeks, and in case of complete mole, it comes to normal by 9 weeks, and in case of partial mole, it comes to normal by 7 weeks. Okay, so 7 weeks and 9 weeks, the beta HCG level comes to normal. Now, when would you think that this can be a neoplasia? So when the HCG levels do not fall or they remain the same when we are doing weekly assessment, or even after 6 months the HCG levels remain high. In this case, we will suspect that the female might have GTN, neoplasia. Okay, so in neoplasia, the most common GTN is invasive mole. So as the name suggests, invasive, so it invades the myometrium. Okay, and this is the most common type of GTN. So in this, the treatment will be hysterectomy because it has already invaded the myometrium, right? And this invasive mole is common after previous molar pregnancy. Okay, and the prognosis of invasive mole is better than choriocarcinoma. So next GTN which we are going to see is choriocarcinoma. So choriocarcinoma can develop either after previous molar pregnancy or after previous normal pregnancy. Okay, and the marker for choriocarcinoma as well as invasive mole is HCG. So now we divide choriocarcinoma into low risk and high risk. Depending on what? So there are certain criteria like age of the patient. If the age is less than 40, it is low risk. More than 40 is high risk. HCG levels. If they are less than 1000, then it is low risk. If they are more than 1 lakh, high risk. So other factors are, we consider that metastasis. So if the tumor has metastasized to the brain or liver, it is high risk. Then if she has previous history of failure of chemotherapy, then we again classify it into high risk. So there are these criteria. We don't need to remember exactly the criteria and their scoring. Just that if the total score is less than equal to 6, it is low risk. And if it is more than equal to 7, it is high risk. So on the basis of history, we can come to know whether this is high risk or low risk. For example, if they say there's a 40-year-old woman who is diagnosed case of choriocarcinoma and is having mets to brain, and the size of the tumor is more than 5 centimeters. So by this history, we come to know that this is a high risk patient. Okay, similarly, they can also give the history of low risk patient. So why is this important to categorize them into low risk or high risk? Because this will determine the treatment option. So if the patient is low risk, we'll give her only single dose or single agent chemotherapy, that is methotrexate. Okay, single agent. But if she is high risk patient, we will need to give her multi-agent chemotherapy. Okay, in multi-agent we have 5 drugs: EMACO, EMACO. E is etoposide, M is methotrexate, A is actinomycin D, C is cyclophosphamide, and O is oncovin. What is oncovin? It is vincristine. So EMACO we give for high risk patients, and methotrexate we give for low risk patients. And also for low risk patient, we will follow up beta HCG level for 1 year, and for high risk patient we will do this for 2 years. Okay, so this is about choriocarcinoma. Coming on to the last GTN, that is PSTT, placental site trophoblastic tumor. So placental site trophoblastic tumor develops after a full-term normal delivery. In the previous 2 cases, in invasive mole and in choriocarcinoma, we saw that they were developing after a molar pregnancy. Choriocarcinoma was also developing after a full-term normal delivery, but PSTT develops only after full-term normal delivery. Okay, in the previous two GTN, we saw that the marker was HCG. Why the marker was HCG? Because the syncytial trophoblast was proliferating. But in PSTT, syncytial trophoblast is absent. Okay, therefore we cannot choose HCG as a marker for PSTT. So what are the markers for PSTT? We have HPL, human placental lactogen, and we can also measure placental alkaline phosphatase level. But the better marker is HPL. Okay. In the choriocarcinoma, the treatment was chemotherapy. Why? Because choriocarcinoma is chemosensitive, but PSTT is chemoresistant. So for treating PSTT, we have only one option, that is hysterectomy. Okay, so hysterectomy was the treatment for invasive mole and PSTT, and chemotherapy was the treatment for choriocarcinoma. Right? So that's it about GTD and GTN. We have covered most of the things. So see you in the next podcast. Till then, enjoy and keep studying. Bye bye.